China is pushing ahead with the controversial national security laws in Hong Kong. The major concern among pro-democracy voices in the city-state is the provision aimed at establishing Chinese intelligence agencies in Hong Kong. Former chief executive of Hong Kong, Leung Chun-ying, alluded to the possibility of China setting up policing agencies in Hong Kong. These agencies are expected to play a crucial role in enforcing the new laws. The role of Hong Kong's police and independent judiciary will be considerably reduced by these new Chinese agencies. Now, China is trying to fend off global criticism against the new laws. Vice Premier Han Zheng has said that only a small group of people will be affected by the proposal. He said that the law is aimed at plugging legal loopholes that were being exploited by pro-democracy protesters. China is deploying its propaganda machinery to give the impression that Hong Kong itself is in support of this law. A group of lawmakers and political advisors from Hong Kong backed Beijing's proposal, saying it would safeguard Hong Kong, but the bill is extremely unpopular in the city-state. Hong Kong's legislature is not even being consulted about the law. China fears intense backlash from pro-democracy lawmakers and so has decided to bypass the elected lawmakers of Hong Kong altogether. The student activist who took on China, the face of the Hong Kong protests, Joshua Wong, joins us live from Hong Kong. Welcome to you, Joshua. Thank you for your time today. Now, the protests taking place today in response to the controversial national security laws, I have a quote of yours calling it the beginning of the end for Hong Kong. What do you want to achieve with these protests today?
Time is running out in Hong Kong, especially how the one country, two system promised by Beijing already turned to be one country, one system once after the announcement of China's government. With the anti-subversion regulation in the national security law, it will be really terrible and easily to silence the voice of not only protesters, but even businessmen, expat, NGOs, religious groups, and how they tightening the freedom of people live in China and Tibet might be the future destiny of Hong Kong. That's why we urge Beijing to withdraw the national security law, just ensure the safety of communist regime, but never guarantee the future of Hong Kong.
This national security law then is ultimately threatening the one country, two systems. That's what you're saying, this formula, which then would remove the broad freedoms of Hong Kong, like free press and independent judiciary. So you say that this is ultimately more dangerous than last year's extradition bill.
Last year, when Beijing suggested to introduce the extradition bill, at least need to go through the legislation process in the Hong Kong Legislative Council. But in 2020, they announced it to impose the national security law without any discussion, without any meeting or vote by the lawmaker in Hong Kong. They bypassed whole of the legislature system in Hong Kong. Separation of power exists in name only.
Right. We have seen a lull in the protests due to the coronavirus lockdown restrictions. Do you feel that China is using the pandemic to push through this bill while the world is dealing with the coronavirus issue?
Beijing, when China export COVID-19 from Wuhan to the world, Beijing take advantage on it, introduce this evil law, and assume that the world will not pay attention to it. But we must put Hong Kong under the global spotlight and urge fellow stakeholders of the global community to stand with Hong Kong.
Right. There were protests for a lot of last year, some turning violent both on the part of the police and the protesters. Have the protesters today witnessed any violence?
All of the violence is come from the root cause of the police brutality. Water cannons, rubber bullets, or those tear gas were used by a riot police. Political crisis must solved by political system reform. Instead of blame the victim, I will ask, how come Beijing would impose such national security law and just jail activists for more than 10 or 20 years and turn Hong Kong to be the next Xinjiang or Tibet?
Joshua, the pro-democracy movement has seen a lot of international support, especially from the US. Will you tell us more about this and the support that you're receiving?
supporting Hong Kong is not a matter of right or left, it's the matter of right or wrong. So we hope to seek for international allies, not only in the Western world, but even in the global community in Asia. So in such uphill battle, we hope to continue and fight back and let Beijing know that kowtow to the authoritarian regime should not be the only way out.
And what is your strategy for the coming days?
We will continue our fight, protest on the street, not only seeking support in the local but also global community.
Right. Beijing is also trying to fend off. Could you explain to our viewers how you expect to carry on?
We will continue mobilize as many people as we can and urge Beijing stop this evil plan.
Right, and Beijing is trying to fend off the global criticism by is expecting to fend off the global criticism against these new laws, saying that only a small group of people will be affected and that the law is aimed at plugging legal loopholes that were being exploited by the pro-democracy protesters. What is your response to this?
Justice delay is justice delaying, and this arbitrary regulation with the political driven motivation of the anti-subversion regulation, it could arrest any people as they can, no matter religious leader, businessman or expat or foreigners. That's the time for us to safeguard freedom in Hong Kong.
Right, and Joshua, do you feel then that China is using its propaganda machinery then to give the impression of Hong Kong's support for this bill?
This is meaningless and they can't reach their goal, and we will continue committed to the movement in Hong Kong until the day they withdraw this evil bill.
Joshua Wong, thank you very much for joining us right here on WION World is One. That is pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong joining us live from Hong Kong.